the silent slaughter. The time is right now. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the terrace of a penthouse overlooking Central Park. It is the kind of place that smells like mahogany and old money. You are wearing a watch that costs more than most people make in a year. Down in the driveway, there is a car you've only driven a couple of times. On paper, you are the envy of the entire world. You are the 1%. But there's a problem, a very big and very terrifying problem. You reach into your pocket to pay for something, and your hand starts to shake, not because you are cold, but because you know a secret the rest of the world does not. You know that despite all the assets and the cars and the fancy company, you have only $4,000 in your checking account, and your $2 million line of credit was frozen by the bank this morning. Welcome to the Rich Session. We are witnessing a silent slaughter. For the first time in decades, the ultra-wealthy are not just losing money. They are going physically and undeniably broke at record speed. We are not talking about someone selling their third yacht. We are talking about centimillionaires watching their entire net worth disappear in months. From the commercial real estate disaster to the end of cheap money, the rules of the game have changed, and the people who wrote those rules are suddenly losing by them. So grab a drink, maybe something cheap, because we are on a budget, and let us look at exactly how the mighty are falling. The buy, borrow, die suicide pact. Let us start with the most dangerous addiction in the world. No, not that one. I am talking about leverage. To understand why the 1% are imploding, you have to understand how they operate. Got rich. For the last 15 years, if you were wealthy, you did not actually spend your money. That is for regular people. If you sold your stock to buy a house, you would have to pay huge taxes. That is gross, right? Instead, you used a strategy called buy, borrow, die. Here is how it worked. You have $100 million in stock. You walk into a big bank and you say, hey, I want to live like a king, but I do not want to sell my shares. The bank says, no problem. We'll give you a low-interest loan backed by those shares. You live off the loan, you pay tiny interest, and you never pay taxes. Because you never sold the asset. It was the infinite money trick. But here's the twist. That strategy works when interest rates are at 0% or 1%. It works when money is free. But suddenly the Federal Reserve woke up and changed everything. Let us look at a real-world case study. Let us talk about a guy we will call Tech Bro Tyler. Tyler was worth $50 million on paper in 2021. His wealth was all tied up in his tech startup before it went public. He took out a loan of about $10 million to buy a house in Aspen and fund his lifestyle. Terms of the loan said that as long as his company value stayed high, he was safe. Then the tech winter hit. Values across the board got cut by 40, 50, sometimes 80%. Tyler's company, once valued at $500 million, is now worth only $100 million. The bank calls Tyler. This is the dreaded margin call. They say, hey, your collateral is now worthless. We need you to pay back $5 million of that loan right now. Tyler does not have $5 million. He has a house in Aspen he cannot sell fast enough. And he has stock he cannot sell because it is. Private Tyler is what we call illiquid. This is happening everywhere. According to data, the cash ratio of wealthy individuals just hit its lowest point in 10 years. They are heavy on assets and starved for cash. When you see a billionaire going broke, it is rarely because they spent it all. It is because they borrowed against their assets to the extreme. And when the tide went out, we found out they were not wearing any swim trunks. They are being forced to sell their prized things at fire sale prices just to pay the banks. The buy, borrow, die. Strategy has turned into buy, borrow, cry. The cost of servicing that debt has tripled. If you are paying 7% interest on a $50 million loan, you need to make $3.5 million in cash every year just to stay afloat. If your assets are not paying you dividends, you are bleeding out. And that brings us to the second and maybe most catastrophic reason the rich are wiping out. The commercial real estate apocalypse. If you want to see where the 1% keeps its wealth, do not look under their mattresses. Look at the skyline. For generations, commercial real estate was the safe haven. It was the boring, reliable investment. You buy an office tower in a big city, you fill it with tenants, and you collect checks forever. It was boring, reliable wealth. But the year is 2024, and the office tower is the new Titanic. Let us paint a picture. You are a real estate mogul. Let us call you Landlord Larry. In 2019, Larry bought a prime office building in downtown Los Angeles for $200 million. Larry did not pay cash, obviously. He put down $50 million of his own money and borrowed $150 million from a bank. Fast forward to today. Remote work is not a trend, it is a permanent shift. Larry's building is 40% empty. The tenants who are left are negotiating for lower rents. But the real killer is the loan maturity. Commercial loans are not like your 30-year mortgage. They usually last 5 to 7 years, and then you have to refinance them. Larry's loan is due right now. He goes to the bank to refinance that $150 million. The bank looks at the building. Because it is half empty and interest rates are high, the bank says, "Larry, this building is not worth $200 million anymore. It is worth $90 million. Do the math with me. Value $90 million. Loan amount $150 million. Larry is underwater by $60 million. The bank will not refinance the full amount. They say if you want to keep this building, you need to write us a check for $60 million to cover the difference." Larry does not have $60 million lying around. So what happens? He hands the keys back to the bank. He walks away, and just like that, his initial $50 million equity, his actual wealth, is gone. Poof. Zero. This is not a hypothetical. This is happening right now. In San Francisco, huge towers that sold for $300 million a few years ago are selling for $60 million today. That is an 80% wipeout of wealth. In New York, groups of wealthy doctors, lawyers, and investors who put their money into these safe deals are seeing their entire investment go to zero. The Wall Street Journal reported that trillions in commercial real estate debt is coming due by 2026. This is a ticking time bomb for the upper class. The partners in these deals, often the top 1% trying to diversify, are getting calls for more money they cannot meet. Imagine getting a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, remember that $500,000 you invested in that office park? It is gone. Also, the building needs a new roof, so you actually owe us another $50,000. That is the reality for thousands of wealthy investors right now. The asset class that created more dynasties than anything else is now acting like a paper shredder for net worth. And the worst part, because these investors are accredited, nobody feels bad for them. There are no government bailouts coming for the guy who owns a 40-story empty building. They are on their own, and the vultures are circling. But while the real estate moguls are crying in their empty lobbies, there is another group going broke for a much more embarrassing reason. A reason that involves private jets, ego, and the inability to do basic math, lifestyle inflation, and the uninsurables. Let us talk about the cost of existence. You have heard of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. It measures the cost of milk, eggs, and used cars. But if you are in the 1%, you do not care about the price of milk. You have a different inflation index, often called the cost of living extremely well index. And right now, that index is going straight up. The media tells you inflation is cooling to 3%, but for the wealthy, the inflation rate is closer to 15 or 20%. Why? Because the specific things rich people consume, labor, privacy, and security have exploded in price. Let us step into a nightmare scenario playing out in zip codes from California to Florida. The scenario: you are Montecito Mike. You made your fortune and you retired to a $25 million villa overlooking the ocean. Life is perfect. You have a wine cellar, a staff of 5, and a view that makes you believe in God. Then you go to the mailbox. Inside is a letter from your insurance company. It is polite but cold. It says, "Due to increased wildfire risk, we are not renewing your homeowner's policy effective immediately." You panic. You call your broker. You say, "Get me another carrier. I do not care what it costs." Your broker sighs. He tells you, "Mike, I have called everyone. Nobody is writing policies in this zip code. You are uninsurable." This is the insurance crisis, and it is the single biggest destroyer of net worth for the coastal elite right now. In 2024 and 2025, major insurers pulled out of California and Florida entirely. If you own a $20 million home and you cannot get insurance, guess what? You technically cannot have a mortgage. If you do not have a mortgage, you need to pay cash. And if you try to sell that house, you have to find a buyer who also has 20 million in cash and is willing to risk watching it burn down with zero coverage. The value of your biggest asset just plummeted by 30% overnight because it carries a toxic risk label. But it is not just the house. Let us talk about the servant economy. During the pandemic, the wages for household staff went nuclear. You used to be able to hire a top-tier house manager for $90,000 a year. Today in Los Angeles or New York, a qualified estate manager demands $180,000 to $250,000, plus full benefits plus a car. If you have a nanny, a chef, and a housekeeper, your cost just to keep your house running has jumped from $250K a year to $500K a year. And remember, that is after tax money. You need to earn nearly $1 million pre-tax just to pay the people who fold your laundry. Then there is the tuition. The price of elite private education has detached from reality. We are not talking about state college. We are talking about the top prep schools. Tuition at these schools is now pushing $60,000 to $70,000 per year per child. If you have 3 kids, that is $210,000 a year. Add in the mandatory donations and the summer camps in Switzerland, and you are bleeding $500,000 a year just on your children's resume building. This creates a phenomenon known as high earner, not rich yet, on steroids. You have people making $2 million a year who feel broke. They are running on a treadmill set to sprint speed. One bad year in the market, one lawsuit, or one divorce, and the whole house of cards collapses. And speaking of bad years in the market, where did all that money go? The angel investing casino. If you wanted to look cool at a dinner party in 2021, you did not brag about your stock portfolio. You bragged about your angel investments. Oh, I just put $50K into this new AI-powered dog walking app. It is going to be the next Uber. For a decade, interest rates were zero, money was free. So wealthy doctors, lawyers, and business owners stopped buying boring index funds and started playing venture capitalist. They threw money at anything with a fancy domain name. They were chasing unicorns, startups worth $1 billion. The year is 2025 and unicorns are dead. They have been slaughtered. Let us look at the math. According to recent data, the failure rate for startups is around 90%. But for AI startups, the ones everyone rushed into, the failure rate is even higher because their costs are enormous. Here is the trap: illiquidity. When you buy Apple stock, you can sell it in 1 second on your phone. When you write a $100,000 check to a private startup, that money is gone for 7 to 10 years. You cannot touch it. You cannot sell it. The scenario you are investor in 2021, you felt rich. You put a total of $1 million into 10 different startups. You thought, if just one of these hits big, I will make 50 million. Fast forward to today. Startup 1, 2, and 3 went bankrupt in 2023, lost 300K. Startup 4 was a crypto exchange that turned out to be a fraud, lost 100K. Startup 5 is actually doing okay, but they ran out of cash, so they raised a down round. What is a down round? It is when a company is desperate for cash, so they sell shares at a much lower valuation than before. Ian bought in when the company was valued at 50 million, and now the company is raising money at a 10 million valuation. Ian's stake just got diluted. His 100,000 is now worth 20,000, and the other 5 startups, they are zombies. They are alive, but they are not growing, and nobody wants to buy them. Ian's money is trapped in purgatory. The exit market has frozen. IPOs are rare. Acquisitions are down because of regulations. The rich people who treated startups like a high-yield savings account are realizing they actually bought lottery tickets and they lost. This is the dumb money era. Sophisticated investors, the top 0.1%, got out early. They sold their shares in secondary markets in 2021. Who did they sell to? The regular rich, the dentists, the small business owners, the lower-tier millionaires who wanted a piece of the action. Now those investors are receiving tax forms that show massive losses but no cash refunds. They are realizing that private equity is a fancy word for you cannot have your money back. And while their assets are locked up in failing apps, the tax man is coming for the cash they do have. But if you think Losing money on bad investments is painful. Wait until you hear about the one expense you cannot avoid. The one that is engineered to strip wealth from the 1% faster than any market crash. I am talking about the divorce industrial complex. The divorce industrial complex. If you think a market crash is bad for your net worth, try a divorce. Financial advisors call it a wealth decimation event. And right now we are seeing a specific phenomenon called the gray divorce, or the rise of the silver splitters. Here's the data. While divorce rates for younger people are actually dropping, the divorce rate for people over 50 has doubled since 1990. And who holds the majority of the wealth in this country? People over 50. The scenario: meet power couple Peter and Paula. They have been married for 25 years. Peter is a private equity partner. Paula is a top plastic surgeon. Together, they are worth $40 million. They are the definition of a power couple, but the spark is gone. The kids are in college, they hate each other, so they decide to split. In a normal economy, this is painful, but manageable. You sell the house, split the cash, and move on. But remember, Section 1 and 2, they are illiquid. Their $40 million is not cash. It is tied up in Peter's private equity fund, which he cannot sell for 5 years. It is tied up in Paula's medical practice, which is hard to value and hard to sell. It is tied up in a real estate portfolio that is currently underwater. So the lawyers step in. And here is where the industrial complex eats them alive. Top-tier divorce attorneys in New York or London charge $1,000 to $1,400 per hour. A complex high-net-worth divorce can take 2 to 3 years to settle. Let us run the tab. 2 lawyers plus forensic accountants to find hidden money plus business valuation experts. That is easily $2 to $4 million in legal fees before a settlement is even reached. Then comes the fire sale. Because they must split the assets to satisfy the court order, they are forced to sell assets at the worst possible time. They have to sell the vacation house, but the luxury market is frozen. It sits for 8 months. They drop the price by 20%. Peter has to sell stocks during a market dip, triggering a massive tax bill on top of the loss. By the time the dust settles, their $40 million net worth has not just been cut in half. After the fees, the taxes, the forced losses, and the alimony, they might walk away with $8 million each. They went from ultra-high net worth to upper middle class in 24 months. And for people used to flying private, $8 million feels like poverty. Courts often look at the standard of living during the marriage. If Peter and Paula spent $100K a month, the court might order spousal support to maintain that. But the income that supported that lifestyle might have been a one-time bonus. Now the income is gone, but the legal obligation to pay remains. The system is designed to extract wealth, and it is brutally efficient. But let us assume you stay married. Let us assume you keep your assets. You still have one enemy left, an enemy that is arming itself with AI data and a mandate to hunt you down. Taxes and the great clawback. The governments of the Western world have a problem. They are drowning in debt. The US national debt is past $36 trillion. The UK, France, Canada, they are all in the same boat. When a government is broke, it does what a desperate person does. It looks for a quick fix. And the quickest fix is tax the rich. We are entering an era I call the Great Clawback. For the last 40 years, it was easy to hide money. You opened a shell company in the Cayman Islands, you bought art, you moved to Monaco. But the game is over. The global financial dragnet has closed. First, the end of privacy. There is a new global standard called the Common Reporting Standard. Over 100 countries now automatically share banking data. If you are an American with a secret account in Switzerland, the IRS already knows. If you are a Brit with money in Singapore, the taxman knows. There is nowhere to hide. Second, the wealth tax threat. You have heard politicians talk about taxing unrealized gains. This is the nightmare scenario for the 1%. Imagine you own a company worth $1 billion. You have not sold it. You have zero in cash. Government says, hey, your company went up in value this year. You owe us $20 million in taxes. How do you pay that? You have to sell shares. If you sell shares, you lose control of your company. It is a forced expropriation of assets. Even if it has not fully passed into law yet, the threat is causing the rich to panic. Third, the migration trap scenario. Let us follow Crypto Chris. Chris made $20 million in Bitcoin. He lives in California, where the top tax rate is over 13%. He hates it. He watches a video that says move to Puerto Rico, pay zero capital gains tax. So Chris packs his bags. He buys a condo in San Juan. He thinks he is a genius. Here is the catch. The IRS is not stupid. They are auditing Puerto Rico tax beneficiaries. They are checking, did you really live there for 183 days? Did your family move there? Where is your center of life? If the IRS decides you faked it, they do not just ask for the tax back. They hit you with penalties, interest, and fraud charges. Chris might wake up 5 years from now, owing $15 million on his $20 million fortune. Fourth, the exit tax. Fine, says Chris. I will just give up my US citizenship and move to Dubai. Not so fast. The US has an exit tax. If you are worth more than $2 million and you renounce your citizenship, the IRS treats it as if you sold everything you own the day before you left. You have to pay capital gains tax on your entire global net worth just to leave the club. The walls are closing in. The 1% are realizing their wealth is being targeted by desperate governments. They are moving assets, buying golden visas, and trying to run. But the cost of running is higher than ever. The irony is the harder they try to dodge taxes, the more they lose in bad schemes and legal fees. And this leads us to the final nail in the coffin, the psychological collapse, because when the money goes, the identity goes with it. Desperation, fraud, and conclusion. When a poor person runs out of money, they panic. When a rich person runs out of money, they hallucinate. This brings us to the final and darkest stage of the 1% collapse, the fraud pivot. Sociologists have a term for this, strain theory. It suggests that when society sets a goal like being rich but removes the means to achieve it, people turn to crime. We are seeing a record spike in what I call desperation fraud. You have to understand the psychology here. For the 1%, money is not just currency, it is identity. It is oxygen. Losing your status is a form of social death. If you cannot pay for the country club or the private jet, you cease to exist in your social circle. So what do? They do not downsize, they double down. They enter the Ponzi phase. The scenario, let us look at hedge fund Harry. Harry has been losing money for 3 years. His investors want to cash out, but Harry does not have the liquidity. Instead of admitting defeat, Harry sends out a statement that says, "Great news, the fund is up 12%. He uses money from new investors to pay the old ones who are leaving. He is not trying to be a criminal. He just thinks, I need one big win to fix this. I will make it back next quarter. But the win never comes. The hole gets deeper. Suddenly, Harry is not an investor anymore. He is a criminal. Real-world case study, the COVID relief scams. Look at the number of wealthy business owners getting arrested for relief fraud. These were not starving people. These were people with boats and vacation homes who saw their cash flow dry up and decided to raid the public treasury. Why? Because the cost of their lifestyle was so high. They felt they had no choice. They risked 20 years in prison just to keep the lease on a fancy car for 6 more months. This is the hidden tragedy of the 1% going broke. It rarely ends quietly. It ends with one suicide. We have seen a rise in motor suicides among financial elites during downturns. The shame is too much to bear. 2. Addiction. Substance abuse rates in wealthy circles are skyrocketing as they self-medicate the stress of ruin. 3. Prison. The white-collar crime units are overbooked. The fake-it-till-you-make-it culture works great in a bull market. In a bear market, it's just called wire fraud. So, when you see that influencer flashing a Lamborghini, ask yourself, is that a car or is that a rental paid for with a credit card that is about to be declined? Because right now, the loudest flex often hides the quietest desperation. Final thoughts. The Great Reset. So what have we learned? We have seen how the buy, borrow, die strategy turned into a suicide pact when rates rose. We watched the commercial real estate market evaporate trillions in equity. We calculated the insane cost of lifestyle inflation and the insurance crisis. We saw the divorce courts and the taxman strip the meat from the bone, and we saw how the desperation to maintain status leads to fraud and ruin. But why should you care? Why should you give a damn if a billionaire loses a zero on his bank account? Because the 1% are the canaries in the coal mine. They are the first to feel the liquidity crunch, but they will not be the last. When the wealthy stop spending, the service economy starves. When investors stop funding startups, the jobs vanish. When landlords default, the regional banks collapse and your savings might be in them. The rich session trickles down. But there is a lesson here for us, the 99%. We spend our lives envying these people. We chase their cars, their clothes, their zip codes, but we are chasing a mirage. We are chasing a lifestyle built on debt, leverage, and stress so high it could kill a horse. The people in those penthouses are not sleeping better than you. In fact, right now, many of them are not sleeping at all. True wealth is not about leverage. It is not about how much you can borrow against your stock portfolio. True wealth is solvency. True wealth is liquidity. True wealth is sleeping at night knowing that if the market crashes tomorrow, you still own your home, you still have your skills, and you do not owe a dime to a bank manager. The 1% are going broke because they forgot the golden rule of finance. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And right now, the slaughterhouse is open for business. If you want to survive the coming economic storm, do not act like the 1%. Act like your grandmother. Save cash, avoid debt, live below your means, because the only thing worse than being poor is being formerly rich. If you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a favor, smash that like button. It is free, unlike a divorce lawyer, and hit subscribe so you do not miss our next video. Until then, stay liquid, stay humble, and I will see you on the other side.